Hello everyone, my name is Oliveira. I'm a Brazilian attorney, also licensed in Texas and California. And today I'm going to answer this question. What is Brazil's forced heirship, and could this affect my share as an heir for inheritance in Brazil? So let's start by explaining what is the forced heirship. By forced heirship, it means that according to Brazilian law and according to civil law in general, so just to give an example, Switzerland is in Europe, right? But it does follow a very similar approach to Brazil. The forced heirship means that people cannot decide about how their assets are going to be distributed upon their death, right? So this is something very typical of Latin cultures, of the civil law type of approach, which is different than common law. Just a quick distinction: United States, the UK, and other English speaker countries, they follow the common law system of law, and Brazil follows the civil law system of law. So these systems, they have different types of approach. And for probates and inheritance in Brazil, we have the so-called forced heirship. And actually in Portuguese, we call it a legítima. And basically it means that, 50% of the pie, 50% of the assets are going to be distributed in strict accordance to what the legislators think it's fair for the family, leaving the other 50% for the person to decide. And the way it works is like, if there is a will, the person, the deceased, would have the opportunity to decide on how this 50% is going to be distributed. But again, the prior 50% is going to be distributed in accordance to the law in Brazil. Now you're probably asking, what is the distribution under Brazilian law for this 50%, which is earmarked according to the legislators? And it goes like this: if there is a spouse, the spouse will usually keep 50%, and the other 50% is going to be distributed among the children, right? And this is going to be 50%. And if there is a will saying, you know what, like all the other 50% is going to go to my friend Jerry, 50% goes to Jerry, the remaining 50% is going to be distributed 50% for the spouse and the other 50% for the children. Now, if there is no will, then 100% is going to be distributed in accordance to the Brazilian rules. Let's now discuss about some things related to the foreign citizens perspective. The first one is the existence of nowadays the so-called common law marriage in Brazil, which we say in Portuguese, união estável, and it's something very unfortunate. It is becoming part of the Brazilian culture, and it goes like this: if two people are in a relationship, even if they are not living together, even if they don't have any paperwork, after a few years, the Brazilian legal system is going to start to consider these two people as married. All right, so even if there was no intention to marry, even if there is zero paperwork, even if these two people are not living together, there is a very high chance that once one of these two people passes away, the remaining one is going to claim, guess what, the common law marriage. And by means of the common law marriage, if there is no will, this person would be entitled to 50% of all the assets of the deceased, right? So this doesn't sound fair to family members, particularly when the relationship was not that long, particularly if the partners were not living together. But it is what it is, and this is the reality in 2025. Anyhow, it's important for you to consult with a licensed Brazilian attorney to review your specific situation and advise you on the probable distribution of assets in your concrete case. Another interesting aspect is that a Brazilian judge could try to enforce this Brazilian approach even for assets abroad. And of course, a Brazilian judge has little saying on how assets abroad are distributed. But if the Brazilian judge is told about assets abroad that are being distributed in accordance to a will, and the will goes against these rules of forced heirship in Brazil, the judge in Brazil could try to make up for the distribution abroad by twisting the shares in Brazil, kind of trying to balance out what was distributed abroad with what is going to be distributed in Brazil. Not sure if the concept is clear, but again, here the judge is trying to enforce the forced heirship, and again, if assets abroad are not following this rule, he would have some leeway to actually change the shares in Brazil in order to pursue the application of Brazilian law. And of course, he's going to have access only to the Brazilian assets, but again, he could twist the shares in Brazil to make up for what is being distributed abroad. It's a more advanced topic, but I wanted to share anyhow. Important for you to consult again with a Brazilian attorney to understand the proper dynamics of distribution of assets in a probate in Brazil. And I hope you like this content and follow us for more tips.